welcome back to the next episode in regards our GPU battles. So after I got my hands on RTX 2080, I sat for about 15 seconds and thought that it wasn't really fair to compare 980 to 2080. I mean, we're talking about 2-generation jump here. So I thought, what can we actually do about it? And I figured we need another test. Now there's not really many GPUs we can stack against 2080, however only one springs to mind. So let's look at our options. We could try to get our hands on 980 Ti, but it's just marginally better for 980, and yes, it does have 6GB of VRAM. We can go for the 10 series, which would leave us with 1060 and 1070. None of those cards are actually stacking up against, well, 2080, unless you overclock the hell out of them, and even then, that's quite a big difference. That only leaves us with the top tier cards, which is 1080 and 1080 Ti. It's not easy to get your hands on 1080, let alone on 1080 Ti, however I was lucky enough to actually get my hands on 1080 Ti now. So the reason why I chose this particular card, obviously, is first of all, I could get it. So I'm always gonna take whatever I can get my hands on. On a second part, this card holds literally its own against Titan XP. And when it comes to Titan cards, we know that's basically the pinnacle of gaming. Now, there is some slight differences between why 1080 is kind of similar but not really with the Titan XP. It kind of goes down to the ROP size, how many they have, and well, 1080 is kind of a bit shorter, but obviously Nvidia cannot just launch a card that will actually do it. However, when 1080 Ti launched, it was considered a 2000 card series killer. Let's see why. So again, all the settings on ultimate. I know, I'm learning from my past mistakes when I didn't know that there's an ultimate setting for breakpoint, since I never used it and I couldn't use it with my 980 even if I wanted. The VRAM usage is predicted at, well, basically 6.5 gigs, but we have 11 gigs to play with. So I think enough chatter. Let's run the benchmark and see how it goes. Now, in terms of performance, again, I'm recording on the same hard drive that it's running this game from, so I'm not sure if that's gonna actually impact the frames too much, but using Nvidia's Shadow Play will deduct at least 5 frames. But since this synthetic benchmark will try to stress out the GPU as much as it can, I'm expecting to have pretty decent results, and I'm not even gonna look at the lost 5 or 7 frames as some people who are just looking at numbers like to point out. First of all, I don't like the people who look at numbers. If you want to get 2 frames more, I mean, you kind of need to prepare for having your system so up to scratch that you are actually getting those extra 2 frames. Real life performance is definitely much more important than a benchmark result. And since I don't trust benchmarks, and this is one of the reasons why I don't edit my videos when I start them, well, at least not anymore, is because people are very quick of saying you edited something out. And I promise I will never touch this topic again unless it pisses me off again. So, everything is maxed out. All I can do, of course, frames are uncapped. Let's hit that run benchmark and see what will happen. So in the terms of 2080, we have a target of 100 frames, A score, and 1700 overall frames rendered. So I'm just gonna shut up for the duration of this benchmark and just observe what kind of result we can get. So here are the results. So our score is 88 frames, so a bit shy of 90, and the frame score is 15,000. Now, thinking about the actual performance of the GPU and considering it is actually not the next gen, so it is a bit slower, the question arises. So, well, to be honest, 12 frames? Yes, you can technically feel it. There's quite a few difference if you're looking at the numbers and you want to see 60 and you see 48, obviously. In terms of the frames rendered, it's not really that far off, so only 2000. But again, benchmarks are not everything. So let's just jump into the game itself and see how it performs. Now, looking at the pricing in between what it comes to 2080 and 1080 Ti, both cards are pretty pricey still. You can grab yourself a 2080 for roughly 600 to 800 pounds, or even more in dollars, obviously, but the 1080 still actually holds its value and actually is not really going down below 700. Would it be a smart move to buy a 1080 Ti? Well, I wouldn't say so. Would it be a smart move to buy a 1080 if someone just upgraded to 2080 or 3080 and you spend like what, 350, 400? Probably. At the same time, 3080 is rumored to be about 650, which is literally cheaper than 2080 and definitely cheaper than 1080 Ti. I'll leave the choice up to you. Now let's see how the real life performance actually looks like. So of course we're getting less frames than before, but considering we are running on ultimate settings, so all the shadows, all the rendering, all the shading, everything is literally maxed out, I can't really complain. We're not into the 60 frame bracket, so this is definitely a pretty capable card. If you want to play Breakpoint, so far it looks like it goes through the bad Ubisoft code like it's nothing. Of course, I do believe that will change eventually because, well, no one can actually defeat Ubisoft's bad code. Let's take a look at the draw distance. So we do have some blur outside of the area, and considering we're using exactly the same settings as we use in 2080, I won't actually say that it feels laggier. Also, the frame differences in regards with the scope in or scope out in open stuff is not really that substantial. Okay, time to go and kill someone in vegetation. As we know, vegetation is pretty big stress point for all the GPUs that are out there. So let's go and find some trouble. So even running in wilds with everything maxed out, including volumetric fog, it's not really worth dropping anywhere below 60, at least yet. The frame curve is pretty, I would say, okay. But at the same time, if people would want to, they can play this with the Vulkan. Vulkan API will actually give better instruction set to your GPU and reduce the CPU load because it is pretty high. So far no frames dropped and we're pretty much around 60 frames. Which for this aging beast, I would say it's a pretty much big win. Of course you cannot compete to newer technologies, that would be pretty stupid, otherwise no one would actually buy them. But for people who are still rocking 1080 Ti's, I can see why they don't see the point of upgrading. If you turn all this off and you don't look at the frames, you won't even know how much frames you're getting, but you also would not notice any stutters or any imperfections. Everything just works. So, I don't know. Maybe this is about the actual, well, frame hunting as I call it. If you look at the frames, it's not much. But do you really need more? This wouldn't be the most competitive title out there. I mean, it's kind of slow paced and yes, there's pretty great visuals when you look at it. But I wouldn't say you need to always hit 140 frames at any given time. I mean, if you can shoot something with 60 frames, there's pretty no difference if you hit it on 140 or 60 in games like these. Let's see if we can get a bit more open world view. Would be great if we could get a chopper, but I don't think I'm actually near any bases to do so. I can actually shoot out a drone. Oh no, the frames actually went up. I don't know if that's good or bad. but here we are. Absolutely no issues whatsoever. The GPU load is at 94-96%, and we're using, well, just shy of 6 gigs. So far I would say this is not bad at all. Does the game look better or worse? Not really. Do I miss any kind of special features? Not really, but I must say this is pretty good stuff if you're into some gaming on Full HD. 4040p? I don't think that's feasible on 60 frames, at least not for this game completely maxed out. But who actually plays their games completely maxed out? I mean, you're literally running into a scenario where whatever happens or goes in the background of your PC will actually throw you off your 60 frames. So, I don't know. I wouldn't say that sacrificing your performance for ultimate quality when it doesn't really look that much different from Ultra is actually a smart move. But again, who am I to actually judge? I just do my benchmarks. So, we're done with Breakpoint. I think it's time to revisit Anthem. So here we are in the Anthem. Obviously, well, we haven't started anything yet, and we see exactly the same behavior. We're using already 2 gigs right off the start. Let's take a look at our settings. There should be no changes ever since the 2080 was actually in here. So something is actually on custom. I wonder what it is. I don't see any changes, at least none of any of these settings. So, I mean, previous graphics changes will require a game restart. Okay, I mean, there was literally nothing else below Ultra anyway, so I don't really think that's fair. Also, I remember this behavior from the previous tests. This game is a bit weird when it comes to applying changes. It always says you need to apply the changes, you do it, and it still asks you to do the same. Well, it just shows how amazing the game code is. However, I think this is pretty much like abandonware now. No one actually plays this game. I already told that once, but I have to repeat myself. I see occasional people coming in with some first level javelins, and then they're just like flying around and trying to figure out what to do. Clearly they got the game for cheap. Can't really blame them. It was a big hype when it just came out. Very big reveal. They spent a lot of money on marketing. Never paid off though. Probably those loading times between areas actually killed the game. And optimization, or the lack of optimization, also killed the main player base that was actually even waiting for the game. However, let's take a look how it is. We did play this game with DLSS, and it proved to improve the performance. Since this is 1080 Ti, it doesn't have the luxury of using DLSS. This will be pretty interesting. Well, I don't really see anything here. And let's take a look. So far everything actually looks pretty okay. However, with 2080 there was a fog, and I was pretty surprised about it. As you can see on the 10 series, there is no fog. So I wonder what changed. 980 and 1080 is not showing the fog on Ultra settings. 2080 was. There must be some witchery going on that we don't really understand, or this game actually wants to be played on RTX enabled cards. Which I would say is cheating. You cannot launch a game and expect better hardware to handle it. You kinda need to tend to your customer needs. In terms of frames, I do believe the Anthem was, well, even the 2080 was stuttering here, dropping as low as 35. So far I haven't seen 35. Oh wait, now I did. 34. Well, not really that bad. Everything still looks okay. Let's grab a javelin and go outside. Again, real life performance and gaming with everything being around is kind of the most important part. Everything else is just FPS hunting. Yeah, this game definitely has some issues. Almost all of my cores are actually at 100%, and the GPU is chilling at 8%. So technically I would say there's something seriously wrong with this game. The same behavior was with 2080, so we're definitely not bottlenecked by a graphics card. I don't know. One patch could actually turn the tide of this game. It actually does look good. I played a fair amount of it, and I kinda liked it. Of course, it's only fun until you actually finish the storyline, and since there's no multiplayer, there's hardly left anything to do. You can do the raids and stuff, but you can only do raids that many times. After a while, you will just uninstall this game and shelf it for a couple months, and eventually you will find that it's still in your library. Pretty unpleasant surprise if you ask me, but hey. It's still pretty demanding title, so if you actually look at it, it also looks good. Can't really, blame it too much.
Javelin passed all system checks. Beginning review of incoming reports for significant markers.
Alright, let me know.
So far on everything maxed out, everything is okay. Well, dropping a bit below 60. Wouldn't say it's expected, but can happen.
Any lancers around? We're just a cargo strider and we need help.
They sound desperate. That signal's in the area. Outlaws did this. They were organized. They may be looking for someone to ransom. We need to move.
Well, I'm
detecting
definitely
a
not
signal
moving
from
there.
inside the Strider. Survivors are inside the cargo bay.
Yeah, you can only do these missions only that many times. In terms of frames, it actually holds up pretty well. It's not as consistent as with the 2080, but again, even that card was struggling and only the DLSS was helping us out. Since this card needs to process everything raw, well, good luck. Actually, I don't remember this blue glow of the water. This is a bit weird. I don't think we actually saw this with the 2080 as well. Frames are rather consistent even when moving around. Of course, occasional drops below 60, but again. This game should be running a bit better in my opinion anyway. I've seen a lot of people trying to actually max this game out with 970s, 980s, 980 Ti's, and they were getting roughly 60 frames as well. To think that this game completely maxed out with 1080 Ti will get the same frames? Well, that's what you get with a bad game code. But it does look pretty though. I have no idea what is this weird thingy here. I mean, the water itself is just paints itself blue. Very interesting. Also, it's not really bound to the draw distance, because technically it should paint itself blue whenever I look in the distance, and the distance looks fine. I'm not dropping any frames. The frame rate is consistent as well. Maybe the game actually got itself an update. well, here we have it. So the Anthem actually does put this card through its paces when it comes to 1080p. Can't really say I'm disappointed. It still holds up pretty well. For the most part, it actually gets exactly what you pay for. Very good performance. However, this game, I wouldn't say I will actually ever use this for a benchmark. Blue water that was never there before, and I haven't heard of any patches or updates lately. Maybe just this card shows how broken this game is. Time to move on. So of course we can't really let it go without trying out Warzone. So obviously for graphics, here we are. Everything will be maxed out as much as I can. Well, basically the same settings we used for 2080. Now there is a weird thing. Apparently I can enable the ray tracing, but since my card does not support ray tracing, it kind of feels like a software ray tracing feature. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it off. There's no point of enabling that if my card does not support it. So, yeah, I will apply the settings, whatever were made. Let's just jump in, practice mode, and try to kill someone. Also, I'm a bit curious about the frames. Call of Duty in general is not really that demanding of a title, however, a lot of people are using 1080s to play this game on 4040p. They claim to get above 60 frames. Well, okay. Well, since it's kind of pointless for me to play around with my weird resolution scaling since my monitor simply, well, is a TV. It's not widescreen, so there's no chance for me to actually get 4040p. And weird kind of optimizations will definitely just make the game stutter and lag. Let's just allow it to live its life in full HD. Shouldn't be too difficult. Well, the cutscene definitely is below 100 frames, but that is fine.
Welcome to Warzone. Battle Royale.
Reflections look exactly the same, getting over 100 frames.
Use your TAC map and choose when to deploy from the aircraft. The white circle on your TAC map shows where the gas closes in. The timer shows how
It would be
long
nice if I could actually, you know, use that
Plan ahead.
144
Like
Hz,
stay out of the
because we're getting 160 while being in a plane and seeing everything around. Which I would say that means the GPU has already pre-cached the whole map.
Out of the aircraft, soldier.
It is not bad. Let's see what happens on the ground.
Use safe
If I don't
zone
kill
location.
myself first, of course.
I
Or
suggest
someone else.
You shoot before you hit the ground. Using your shoot lets you glide away from everyone else. But you'll get on the
Really?
ground late. Eliminate all targets in the AO. Search inside the buildings for weapons and ammo. Listen for the hum of nearby supply boxes. Enemy soldier incoming. Cash can be used at buy stations to buy kill streaks and other special items.
Well, at least now we have a gun so we can actually fight against the enemies, and so far we're getting 150, 160 frames. I would say this is not bad at all. There's no stutters, no lags. And I even managed to kill someone. That is new, even for myself.
Target down! Well done. The upper right part of your HUD shows how many enemies remain. Cash can be used at buy stations to buy kill streaks and other special items. Taking fire! Reloading! Grab some armor plate. Target down!
Well, so far it's actually pretty amazing. 150 frames. Well, of course, Full HD gaming is not your 4040p or 4K, but god damn it, I can't really complain. So far everything is going better than I expected. Yes, we just dropped to 120 frames, But, I mean, we're literally maxed out as much as we can.
Cash can be used at buy stations to buy kill streaks and other
I'm pretty sure in multiplayer I would be already long dead and in Gulag, but luckily the bots are playing even worse than I am, so that kinda gives me a fair chance.
Gas is moving in. Safe zone located.
I was never a fan of Warzone, to be completely fair, but considering this card's performance, I might actually start. If I would know how to play first, but that is a different story. So far we're actually getting pretty good frames, and well, they're not really always constantly at 140 and 50, but at the same time, if we wouldn't be totally maxed out, I think we would have a pretty fair chance of hitting 140 frames.
Enemies are still active. Hunt them down. The helicopter will provide extraction for the last survivor. Eliminate your targets. Stay out of the
Well, looks like I'm actually gonna kill all the bots. Not too bad. However, I think this is pretty much all there is to show about this game. I'm not playing to win, it's just for the test. And the test was actually passed with flying colors. 1080 Ti can still actually hold its own, even against a title like this fully maxed out. What I heard, people actually do not play maxed out this, so doesn't really matter, I guess. The draw distance is okay, all the effects are showing as they should, and there's actually no big problem spotting the enemies if you know what you're looking for.
Grab some armor.
Oh, hello.
Reloading. 5 remain.
I must say, I have no complaints at all. The frames are definitely lower than with the 2080, but come on. At least one generation gap, and that is not your 2060 or 2070. That was a 2080. And for 1080 to actually have decent frames versus 2080, kinda makes you reconsider your purchase options. I think that's enough for Warzone. Let's take a look at our last title.
Final deployment is making ready. Your window closing fast. Grab some armor plates. 3 remain. Stay sharp.
Well, that's it. So of course, as you might have guessed, the last title is Metro Exodus. Now, obviously I need to show you what we have. And I try to be, well, as generous as possible with all the settings. So we're playing on Full HD, the quality is ultra, no vertical sync, motion blur high, DirectX 12, and it does give me an option to enable Nvidia's RTX, which obviously I will not do because this is a bit odd. This card does not support it, so I'm not sure why this feature is here. However, the same thing was at Warzone. I double checked my drivers. All the drivers are for 1080 only. There was a clean and fresh installation, no leftovers from the 2080. Also, after the 2080, for a brief moment there was a 980 plugged back in and reinstalled as well, so technically everything should be fine. We have advanced physics, and well, everything else is maxed out as it should. And what are we getting? We're getting way above 60. And we're seeing the same thingies that we saw with an RTX card. Guess it wasn't actually the ray tracing doing its magic. Apparently it's just the game is very well made and looks beautiful. Which I would never thought I would say about a Metro game. I should just jump and break my legs, but I'm tired of loading the games.
Hey, what was that?
That was you talking again, Anna. Okay, well, I guess it's time to actually spasm out, so people with epileptic sensitivity, look away for a second. Even doing that, the frames are actually not going down really, they're kinda going up. I guess this game is actually made for crazy Russians. To be completely fair, I never played this game from start to finish, so seeing that I'm actually getting really good frames, I might actually do it while this car is still in my possession. So far, everything's amazing, and I forgot to shoot the glass, but I guess that's kinda expected. The game looks amazing, and it runs even better though. Let's see if we can actually kill some frames with actual water. Which I must say, I never noticed this little thingy here. Well, of course there was a little drop in performance due to the water movement, but overall it's not that bad. My wife is still immune against headshots, so I'm not gonna do that ever again. I guess my frames, well, my aim is improved. Also the frames themselves. I don't know. Looking at all this, I would say this is an absolute win for 1080 on Full HD playing. Leave your comments down below and tell me what graphics card I should test next. Also, I do have one graphics card in mind, but I don't think you would actually want to see it. It's a 670 with 2 gigs of memory. An ancient thing that actually now rests in the box and is very happy about doing so. Let me know if you want me to actually take it out, dust it off, and see what would happen if that card would actually run these games. As always, stay classy.